Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I'm Gavin. I just want to come on here and talk about my thoughts and what the Lord has been teaching me lately. So lately what's been on my mind was the time in the Bible, in Exodus, when the Jews were being led out by Moses out of slavery from Egypt. This is in Exodus 14, verse 12. Isn't this what we told you in Egypt? Leave us alone so that we may serve the Egyptians. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. So right here, the Jews are going to Moses. They're in the wilderness. They are now out of Egypt, and they're standing in front of the Red Sea. They're standing in a place where it seems that there is nowhere else to go. They're tired. They're hungry. They feel like God isn't there. How many times in our lives have we felt like the Jews? That we're in the wilderness, we're in this uncomfortable situation, this uncomfortable scenario. It feels like God isn't there. We're tired. It's difficult. We're uncomfortable. So the Jews were so uncomfortable that they said they would rather go back to being slaves in Egypt. See, to me, that sounds kind of crazy. That you would rather go from freedom back to slavery just because you're uncomfortable. So how many times in our lives, in our walk with the Lord, do we face adversity, we face challenges, and we get discouraged, we lose sight of God, and we're just like, I want to go back to when life was easy, to when I felt comfortable, to when we were in our sin. Because sin feels good to our flesh. That's why we struggle with it. That's where there's a constant wrestle between our flesh and our spirit, because sin feels good. But we know it's wrong because we know Jesus. Jesus showed us that sin was wrong. He delivered us from that. He delivered us from being slaves to sin. So why sometimes do we just want to go back? Or do we find ourselves back to what God has delivered us from? Do we find ourselves back in the season, the situation, doing the things that we were doing before we came to Christ? I love how Moses responds to the Jews when they say this. In verse 13, he says, "Don't be afraid. Stand firm and see the Lord's salvation that he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you must be quiet." So in a sense, Moses is telling them to be quiet and trust in God. I think that's something that a lot of us need to hear. Be quiet and trust in God. Understand that God is fighting for you. And in the season that you're walking in, it may be uncomfortable as the wilderness was for the Jews. But God is calling you to something greater than your past, than your Egypt. God is bringing you out of your Egypt and leading you into deliverance, into freedom. So walk in that freedom. We have to stop being so focused on our comfortability and understand that being uncomfortable leads to change. It morphs us. That's why God takes us to uncomfortable depths, uncomfortable seasons. But understand that these uncomfortable depths and seasons is the great things that God has called us to. So what I feel the application from this part of the passage is to stay on the path of deliverance. Stay on the path that the Lord is leading you through. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be difficult. But this is what the Lord is calling you to. Understand that what God is calling you to is way better than what is behind you. Way better than the life of being a slave to sin is. You are not shackled. You are not bondage to anything no longer in Christ Jesus. You were dead and now you are alive through Christ. So walk in that deliverance. Walk in that freedom that God gives you. Thank y'all for watching this video. I hope it encourages you and helps you with your walk with the Lord. And understand that the best is ahead of you, not behind you.